Good morning, evening, or afternoon to all of you beautiful, spoopy people. Josh here to bring you some sweet, voice-based content. Happy Halloween, everybody. It's truly the most wonderful time of the year. I hope you're all having a wonderfully spooky day and are ready for more of my favorite voice acting performances. If you haven't seen the previous episode of the series, I would highly recommend checking it out, as it does provide some additional context for this video and some of the themes and elements that I will talk about when it comes to this particular character. With all of that out of the way, let's dive right into another one of my favourite spooky voice acting performances, as today we're going to talk about Guy Cihi's performance as James Sunderland. Let's go! So as we always do in this series, let's start off by talking about the man himself. Who is James Sunderland? Warning as always, spoilers ahead. Go ahead and pause this video and go and play Silent Hill 2 if you do not want to be spoiled. It's cool, I'll wait. Okay, listen, I know this joke has definitely gotten old by this point, but it's my insurance policy against people saying that I didn't give them enough warning or enough time to go and pause the video if they wanted to not be spoiled. And then it stops certain people, Tay, from leaving comments and getting mad about said spoiler warning. Yeah, that's right, I'm calling you out again, Tay. Brilliant, I think that's been enough time. Let's jump in. So as mentioned previously, James Sunderland is the protagonist of Silent Hill 2. Though unlike Harry Mason, who came before him, James actually comes to Silent Hill willingly after receiving a letter from his deceased wife Mary, who beckons him to come. He comes to Silent Hill in search of her, despite knowing that his search may be completely pointless. Now, I do have to address the main criticism that Guy Cihi has received for his performance as James Sunderland, and kind of the reason why I wanted to make this video. People give him a lot of flack for seeing his performance as flat and stiff, but I think that's the biggest aid to James Sunderland's character. Guy Cihi performing James as he would do just a normal guy is the best thing he could have done for James as a character. Let me explain. What I think is important to remember about James Sunderland is that he's not... How do I put this? James Sunderland is not a superhero. Unlike the characters in other video games that were coming up around the time of Silent Hill 2's release, James is an everyman, just like Harry Mason, who came before him. James Sunderland will not burst through a room or crash down a door and scream, "I'm here to rescue my wife and nobody will stop me." Because in the context of Silent Hill as a series, and especially Silent Hill 2 as a game, that character just wouldn't work, it wouldn't make sense. Silent Hill is a place that brings your demons and your darkest fears to life. And James is a man with a lot of skeletons in his closet. James doesn't care about anything other than finding Mary. He has nothing else to live for. From the start of Silent Hill all the way to the end, Mary was James's last glimmer of hope. But despite the fact that James is here, Guy Cihi does an incredible job at portraying James's unease and uncertainty with his own choice. James is not confident in his own mission. I mean, from the very first scene in the bathroom, we hear him say himself,
"Mary, could you really be in this town?"
And when he's talking to himself about Mary's letter and the fact that Mary is dead, even he says to himself,
"It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself."
And asks himself,
"So then, why am I looking for her?"
This opening sequence, the first few minutes of the game, gives us a perfect indication of who James Sunderland really is. He's a man desperately trying to find the one person who gave him purpose and happiness, but even he doesn't fully believe that it's gonna happen. It gives off this impression that James truly has nothing else to live for, that he's here because of that tiny glimmer of hope, despite how fruitless the mission might be. The only times when James shows any glimmer of happiness is when he thinks Maria, mentioned in my previous video, is Mary. But as soon as he realizes it's not, he's back to his normal detached self. Now, a consistently detached person obviously does not make a great voice acting performance, so there are moments where James's emotions truly come forward. There are quite a few moments that I could speak of, but I'm going to specifically talk about two. Firstly, let's talk about the scene with the two pyramid heads after they have just killed Maria. Again, Now in that scene, Guy Cihi starts off with that low, detached tone that we've been so familiar with when it comes to James.
Needed someone to punish me for my sins.
But as the scene goes on and he talks more about his realizations within himself, you get this feeling of determination within James. Something flips inside James and it turns him from this passive, detached, depressed character into a character with motivation and determination. He's finally come to realize the truth and is finally ready to take on that final challenge.
That's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
The clear differences between the tones in this scene as that tiny monologue goes on is incredible. Guy Cihi does a great job of bringing James's less fractured mental state to life. We finally see an air of confidence in James for probably the first time in the entire game. And this in turn instills confidence in the player that it's finally time to bring James's suffering to a close. And then there's the bedside scene with Mary in the Leave and in Water endings of Silent Hill 2. Now, I'm going to put this in here one last time. Major spoilers ahead. If you are planning on playing Silent Hill 2, pause this video now because I really do not want this part spoiled for you. Okay? You've been warned. So as the game goes on, it's finally revealed that James was the reason for Mary's death. James killed Mary by smothering her with a pillow, either out of selfishness, remorse, mercy, whatever way you want to spin it. He was the one who ended Mary's life. And at the end of the game, depending on if you got one of these two endings, he finally reunites with Mary and addresses his own sins, finally admitting that he didn't do what he did for noble reasons, or at least not entirely for noble reasons. And it's here where Guy Cihi's performance hits its major apex. You hear the brokenness in his voice as he says some of the harshest things that you could say to somebody.
The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
And hearing those lines, you truly feel how much the guilt has eaten James alive. James has shown throughout the game that he's willing to go through anything just for the glimpse of seeing Mary again. And in this scene, we finally find out why. Regardless of whether you look at the Leave or in Water ending, it's truly a summation of how he's able to lay his demons to rest. A truly wonderful performance by Guy Cihi, and I'm really sad that Guy Cihi didn't continue voice acting after Silent Hill 2, because he's got a truly magnificent way with voice acting, and this performance in itself is a damn treasure. But then again, I guess the fact that he didn't voice act after Silent Hill 2 kinda helps to keep it that treasure. And there we go, that is my appreciation for Guy Cihi and his portrayal of James Sunderland. This was a more difficult video to make than I expected. I assumed that because I love Guy Cihi's performance so much that it'd be really easy to talk about, but it was actually a lot harder to define what makes his performance great in my eyes. But either way, I truly hope I did it justice. If you did enjoy this video, then please drop a like and subscribe to my channel for more beautiful voice-based content. Keep your eyes out for my next video. I upload every 2 weeks, but until next time, happy Halloween and stay wonderful.